Hey, smile, John.
Yeah.
Good evening, it's July 8th, 2025. It's my pleasure and distinct honor to be sitting with Mr. John J. Jeckovich today in Studio 6A. How are you doing, Mr. Jeckovich?
Doing well.
It's your grandson, Tom Jeckovich's birthday today.
Yeah.
Tell him happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Okay. July 8th, Tom Jeckovich's birthday. Happy birthday, Tom.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Wish you many more. Wish you many more. Well, Mr. Jeckovich was from Company H, the 2nd Battalion of the 291st Regiment of the 75th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army during World War II. Mr. Jeckovich lives by the motto, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. We're reading Mr. Jeckovich's book. We're second time around. We're on chapter 7, which is titled Overseas and Beyond. And we're on page 183. And you want me to read a few pages?
Yeah, go ahead.
Then we'll get rid of chapter 7, and then we could do something else. What's your dog tag number?
242-965.
All right, that's the passcode to open up the book on the laptop. This is where Mr. Jeckovich is in Wales, took a troop ship from the United States, and is getting set up to go to the front line. But right now he's not. He's in Wales at Haverfordwest training. There was posted on the company bulletin board a forthcoming dance at the local canteen, British for USO. No passes would be issued since the only requisite was that you sign in and sign out in the orderly room, providing you're not on some sort of detail, right? The orderly room was in the headquarters platoon building several streets away from our shower area, which made it convenient to shave and shower, sign out, and take in the sights of the town without extra hassles of riding buses for hours as we did at Breckenridge. Granted, the walk was somewhat of a nuisance, but it was well worth it for the hot showers we could partake of. It was one of the few things of which the Army had proven itself quite capable of achieving. The canteen was a former auditorium of sorts, situated at the opposite end of approximately 1.5 miles from our billets. It was easy to find, as we only had to go down the Milford Road to Merrill Road and turn left on Freedom's Way until we came to Howells Avenue. The auditorium sat at the end of Howells Avenue. Considering the size of the town, 33,000 population, the canteen and dance floor were rather large. The dance floor was in the center of a large room with space for the orchestra at one side. Do you remember the place?
Yeah, I remember it, yeah.
What kind of orchestra did they have?
Well, Miami Orchestra, a 25-piece band.
Okay. Along one outer wall were clustered small tables and chairs, and at the end of this wall was a U-shaped bar which served several warm English beers. Did the English drink their beer warm?
No, yeah.
Sodas warm?
Yeah.
Biscuits and cookies. The other wall encompassed at the entrance clothing check counter and presumably the chatting area where you greeted your escort or got acquainted with one. As Flink and Lape and I entered There was already many GIs mingling along with some RAF and British soldiers. What struck us gratifying was the abundance of females, so there's a lot of females there, right?
Yeah.
All the young and somewhat attractive in the British attire.
All the harpers and males are gone.
Yeah. I thought of Anne and felt somewhat self-conscious as I looked about the collection of young women. Fink began to circulate, and Leip kept following me as I wandered about. With the band struck up another trio of tunes. The girls were well-mannered and reserved, as the British are noted for. As I walked about, I was greeted with the warm "Hello, Yank," or "Hello," or never, or just "Hello," never a hi. The girls were all from several villages, and they seemed exhilarated and pleased to be here among strangers from another country. As I stood and watched the dancing, Leip kept pestering me to start circulating and make some contacts. I ignored his persistence since I had no intentions of actually dancing with someone. I felt that if I was mysteriously engaged, as was forbidden in the precept of Anne's and my relationship. The band took a short break, and Lake and I walked over to the bar to taste our first English beer. It was flat, and worst of all, it was warm. After several sips, I laid the glass down and walked away. Lake thought it tasted great and had another. He followed me out and the glass in the hand, eyeing all the girls as we passed them. I did not particularly notice anyone, but thought of Anne and our first dance together. I did compare Anne with the girls here, and I thought there was no comparison. Anne had them beat by a mile. The band struck up again. It was a familiar Hokey Pokey. Leip and I walked over to the dance floor and watched the GIs dance the Hokey Pokey with British lassies. As we stood there watching, someone tapped me on the shoulder. As I turned around, there was a girl smiling at me and asked me if I cared to dance. Before I could form a reaction, I said yes. I smiled back at her and led her onto the dance floor. I'm no great dancer, and the ins and outs of the Hokey Pokey made me go every which way, much to the joy and pleasure of my female companion. She seemed to enjoy anticipating my missteps, following through with the correct sequence. I was beginning to enjoy myself and fell in the mood of the music, trying to stay with the music and at the same time get acquainted with my newfound friend.
A Hokey Pokey, huh?
Yeah. We had a little time.
21 minutes.
We had a little time for small talk, as it took all my powers of concentration for my dancing. Following my companion and still trying not to be too clumsy and left-footed about. Finally, when a number was completed, I escorted her to the bar for something to drink, and we both agreed on a soda. As we sat on the table, she told me her name was Jean, and I then made the remark that there were two J's, as my first name is John. She liked the comparison and acknowledged it with a smile as she crossed her legs and sipped on her soda. Leip sauntered over to the table and kept gawking and smiling as he wanted part of the action. I was a little perturbed at his behavior when the music started up again. I asked Jean if she would care to dance. She got up, walked over to the dance floor. Lucky it was a slow foxtrot and something I could handle. I felt strange holding someone else besides Anne, as all the old positions somehow did not match, and we felt awkward and inept. As we danced, I found myself concentrating on what she was saying, as it was difficult to comprehend parts of her speech. It was all due to her thick Welsh accent, as many of her words and phrases had different meanings, connotations from what I was familiar with. I was fascinated with her accent and thought it was most worldly and sophisticated. So that's basically the end of chapter 7, and we're running into chapter 8, which is on page 185 the second time around. And this is Jean, Sonatas, and Bombers. What's a Sonatas?
Now what?
Sonatas.
Let me see it.
I'll spell it Sonatas. Sonatas.
Soda pop.
No, stay.
I can't see it. Jeans and bombers. Now what do you want me to look at?
What's the word Sonatas? In the heading of the chapter.
Jeans, soda sauce, and bombers?
Yeah, what's Sonatas?
Sonatas, that's the military plane.
Okay. All right. Don't push back a little bit so you're in focus.
Huh?
Yeah, push back a little bit so you stay in focus. You're out of focus that close. It's just to push back a little bit. You don't want to be out of focus, Mr. Jeckovich. That sounds about right. Jean, Sonatas, and Bombers, page 185. Jean was a bright, shiny personality with just the right amount of reserve to make her instantly difficult from anyone that I have known before. She worked in her father's office doing secretarial tasks. Although she was intelligent, did not go to upper school, which is college. She was only a child and had no driving aspirations to join the Army or the WWII to help win the war. She was also casually mentioned that some of her relatives had been killed in the bombing of London, She also was a diminutive, attractive figure, but not as stunning as Anne's. I thought she did not dress as smartly as Anne, which I thought was of no consequence. Jean was sincere and well-mannered, and was not defensive at all when I learned that she did not drive, or even had a driver's license.
Bicycle.
Huh?
Or a bicycle.
Bicycles, yeah. Bicycles. She rode her bicycle to get around to wherever she wanted to go, and thought nothing of riding her bicycle to work or even church. Her father drove on rare occasions, as there was gasoline shortage. We danced and talked as the evening progressed, and I was glad I had met her. She was interesting, a good listener, and most of all,
16 minutes.
and most of all, she appeared completely relaxed and uninhibited in what she would talk about, mostly her genuine love for Wales and her family life. She had no great ambition to go to the States and wanted nothing more to eventually raise a family right here in Haverfordwest. As the band began to play the final and closing number for the evening, as I listened to Jean, I was somewhat distracted by my own thoughts. It was only proper and gentlemanly, I thought, to walk her home wherever that might be. Wherever that might be. There was no available transportation, and there was a blackout in effect outside. I did not see Leip anywhere about, but I did spot Fink. He gave me a thumbs up as he escorted his lady friend out to the front entrance of the auditorium. I took my cue from Fink, and without actually saying anything, I commenced to walk out the front entrance with Jean. We talked about something trivial. When we reached the outside, it was totally dark with no lights anywhere, so it's a complete blackout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Complete blackout. Jean realized my dismay and remarked rather nonchalantly, "Lucky it's not raining. The walk will do us good." Wales got a lot of rain, didn't it?
Yeah.
I automatically took her hand when I realized what I had done and become embarrassed and disturbed at my actions. She sensed it and said, "Thank you. Some of the streets are treacherous at night with all the unevenness and the protruding front steps." So the steps of the cottages are close to the street.
What?
The steps to the cottages are like almost right on the street.
Yeah.
As we walked and talked, I began to compare the touch of her hand with Anne's. Jean's hand was smaller. The fingers and nails were not quite as long or tapered as Anne's, and she did not wear any polish on her nails, though she were well manicured. She held my hand firmly and confidently as we maneuvered along the darkened street. There were no sidewalks anywhere. She mentioned that I should carry a small torch. She meant flashlight, right?
Yeah.
At night to point out the unfamiliar obstacles. I thought it a good idea. From that night on, I carried a GI flashlight with a reflective lens on it.
Yeah.
I discovered that she lived a few blocks away from our shower building, which was almost on the outer edge of a town. It was a modest cottage, although it did have a small garden and was set off the street. The cottages were close together, similar to what they were below in the heart of town. Everything was in complete darkness, for the landscape being lighted up by the moon, darting in and out of the low-lying clouds. Wow. We talked a bit more at her front gate, and I thanked her for a wonderful evening. She stated that she also had a very enjoyable time, better than she had in a long time, and thanked me. I asked if she wanted me to wait around until she entered the front door. She laughed gently and said no, there was no need to it, as it was only a short distance to her front door. With that, she said goodnight and turned towards the cottage. I said goodnight and waited until she entered, and then proceeded to find my way back to the billets. How far was the billets from her house?
Probably a mile.
That's not bad. Minutes, please.
11.
It was strange trying to locate and orient yourself in total darkness and unfamiliar surroundings. Was there a lot of dogs in the neighborhood?
A lot of dogs?
Yeah.
Everywhere had a dog, yeah.
Did they chase you around?
No, they were all in the houses, I guess.
I tried to refresh my memory on the turns down the streets, and I traversed my way down the uppermost level of the town. There was no one about, and the hour was not that late, a little before 2400 hours. I groped my way down, stumbling and tripping on unfamiliar steps and curbs. Finally, I reached the shower building, and I felt confident that once more that I could find my way to the orderly room and the billets. I reached the orderly room, and there was no one about. I signed in along with time and left to go down to the billet area. Leip was still up and began asking me 1,000 questions about my night's events. He said that he began talking with a couple of people from the second platoon, Then they left and walked about the town. Evidently it wasn't too much fun, as everything was blacked out, and after getting lost several times, he made it back to the billets, showered, and got ready for lights out. I did not say much about the dance or Jean, but I only reiterated that I wanted to take a shower and prepare for bed. He understood and said goodnight, and was shortly fast asleep. I threw a couple more lumps of coal in the fireplace, grabbed my towel and toilet articles, and went down the hallway and waved to the person on fire watch and headed for the shower room with a flashlight. The government issued you flashlights?
Yeah. No, but that was a government issue, yeah.
Yeah. Minutes, please.
Just under 9.
The next morning, having marched back from Chow, and while still in formation, we informed Captain Druid that there was only a short hike at 9:30 hours. The uniform of the day would be fatigues, helmet liners. What's a helmet liner?
The helmet liner went in your steel helmet.
But you didn't wear the steel helmet.
No, just wore the helmet liner.
That's a lot lighter, right?
Yeah.
Field jackets and a personal weapon and light packs. I was in no mood physically or mentally for a 10 to 15 mile hike with only 4 hours sleep, and thought of actual combat getting closer by the day. I was just settling down in a quiet, restful atmosphere of this quaint and peaceful hamlet called Haverfordwest.
Yeah.
Wow. Haverfordwest. Actually, the hike was relaxing and I enjoyed it. We marched our regular route as if to Chow Milford Road to Dew Street, down High Street into Victoria Place. And roughly 10 miles out, we rested for a while and turned back for the final 10 miles back to Haverfordwest. There were no dropouts, and Captain Dreward made the hike with us, but neither Sergeant Whalen nor Rupert accompanied us. They were the only two officers, both second lieutenants, whom I have never seen before. Neither of them said much, and I figured them to be ex-ASTPs or Air Corps trying to adjust to the life of an infantry officer. We arrived back at the billet around 1400 hours and hung around the squad room, writing letters, reading or napping, waiting until chow. Spending time around the billets was getting to be boring, especially during the evening hours. The engineers had provided us with some power, 2 50-watt bulbs in each squad room, operating under 25 cycle. Not enough to read, but just enough to find your way about the building. So the lights were very dim, right?
Yeah.
Suddenly a thought occurred to me, would not it be nice if I could spend my evenings with Jean? Just talking and being in her company, anything would be better than this. I thought and dismissed the idea from my mind. I wondered what Anne was doing at this exact moment, and I stopped to figure out the time difference. I decided to write her another letter, still self-conscious about writing, knowing that someone besides her was reading it. I missed calling her on the phone, and all at once thought struck me how alone and isolated I was. So far from home and no one to talk to other than my fellow soldiers. There was the realization that I was almost in the same position that I found myself in at home. The only difference was a strange and unfamiliar environment and hundreds of soldiers to talk to, well, perhaps to listen to. Minutes, please.
Five.
You feel, I'm going to put this chapter on hold for a little bit. Could you pick that up, that fellow? And I want to know if you're interested in answering any questions. Interested in answering any questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, these are text messages. I'm not sure when they came in. Sometime during the month of July, because the documents are dated July. Mr. Jeckovich was combat infantry in World War II, front line. He was beat up, shot, bombed, shot in the shoulder by a sniper,
Also hip.
lost a hip, trench foot, frostbite, and every type of injury you could possibly imagine. But
I still got the frostbite right now.
You're suffering frostbite right now?
Yeah.
80 years later, he's still suffering frostbite. During World War II, there were 16,400,000 young men and women that participated from the United States in World War II. And now we're down to less than 5,000 frontline infantry soldiers. And we're losing them at a rate of 150 a day. So do the math. Do the math. Mr. Jeckovich was drafted. He went in at 19 years old, and he did quite well.
33s.
33 is the code for teenage soldiers. Actually, teenage soldiers are the best fighting soldiers with lots of stamina. Before the war was over, Mr. Jeckovich was awarded the Bronze Service Medal, the Purple Heart Medal, the Army Good Conduct Medal, American Campaign Medal, European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal, with 3 Bronze Stars, Service Stars, the World War II Victory Medal, Army of Occupation Medal, with Germany clasp, the Combat Infantry Badge, the Sharpshooter Badge with carbine, pistol and machine gun bars, the Marksman Badge with rifle bar, and the last medal he received was the Honorable Service lapel button for World War II. That's quite a bit of medals. That's quite a bit of medals. So you feel like answering a few text
Yeah,
messages?
go ahead.
Okay, this is sometime in July these come in. Mr. Jeckovich, where were you born and raised?
Niagara Falls, New York.
And tell us about your growing up. How was it?
I had a modest environment. I had a warm family. And
Tell us
I don't think I missed anything.
Tell us about your neighborhood, minutes, please.
The neighborhood was that neighborhood was good then. It was a dump now.
It went down, huh?
Yeah.
Just under 2 minutes.
How many?
Just under 2.
You grew up during the Depression. Did you feel at any time?
No, I didn't
that you were-
feel. No, I didn't feel I neglected anything.
You didn't feel like you missed anything, right?
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. What were you doing before you got drafted into World War II? You're a teenager, but what type of work did you do?
I worked with with my uncle.
I see. It's your grandson's birthday, Tom Jeckovich, today. Do you remember going to Zellwood with him and flying in the plane?
Oh yeah.
Tell us the type of things you used to do with him.
The what?
Tell us the type of things you used to do with your grandson, Tom. You used to go and visit him every weekend in Zellwood. Tell us how it went.
No, what are you talking about? What?
Your grandson, Tom, you and Delphine used to go visit him in Zellwood.
Yeah.
Tell us the things you would do when you visited.
Well, he ate all those kids.
Yeah, and then you go flying with him?
Yeah. Well, we went every weekend, yeah, every Sunday, yeah.
And then what did you do at his shop?
Well, I helped him out with the stuff, the electrical or whatever he needed. He took some big thing he had in the garage, we had to take down.
Some sign?
Yeah,
That was called a playpen sign.
yeah.
That sign came from a bar in Polk County. So you two worked together almost every weekend.
Yeah.
20 seconds.
Huh?
20.
Did you enjoy flying with him?
Oh, yeah, but we only stayed one day. We didn't stay overnight or nothing.
Yeah, and every Sunday you'd come.
Yeah.
Well, it's your son's birthday today. Wish him happy birthday.
All
Your
right.
grandson, Tom.
Yeah, all
Happy
right.
birthday, Tom.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Beautiful.